Imagine that you're doing everything right. You wake up early, dedicate yourself to work, take care of your diet, and try to stay productive all the time. In theory, you're following all those tips that seem perfect for a healthy, balanced life. But silently, without you even realizing it, these very habits are draining your strength, eroding your energy, and pushing you into a state of exhaustion that feels impossible to escape. This is hidden burnout, the kind that doesn't strike suddenly but builds quietly, disguised as discipline and self-care. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we dive deeper into this topic, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. This is a safe space created for people who feel the weight of stress and overload and are looking for real paths to emotional recovery. Here, we talk about mental health with compassion, without judgment, and always offering practical solutions that can truly transform your life. So go ahead and click subscribe, because I'm sure today's content will open your eyes to things you may have never stopped to consider. Now think with me. How many times have you pushed yourself to follow a routine that, in theory, should make you feel better, but in reality only made the sense of fatigue and emptiness worse? This happens because some habits that look healthy can actually hide a trap. Let's identify some of them together. The first is the habit of always being available. You might think being present for everyone shows generosity and professionalism, answering messages right away, taking calls after hours, never saying no. It all looks like proof that you're reliable and dedicated, but inside, it's burning you out. When you never set boundaries, your body and mind believe they must always be on alert. And living on alert is like keeping a car engine running all the time. Eventually, the gas runs out. Have you noticed how, at the end of the day, even without heavy physical effort, the mental weight feels unbearable? That's the result of never allowing yourself to shut down. Another misleading habit is the relentless chase for productivity. How often have you tried to schedule your day down to the minute, filling every slot with tasks to feel efficient? Being organized is healthy, but turning productivity into identity can be dangerous. The problem is that you start measuring your worth by how much you accomplish. And when for whatever reason you can't keep up, guilt creeps in. This creates a vicious cycle. The more you pressure yourself, the more exhausted you become. It's like running on a treadmill. You're always moving but never getting anywhere. The emptiness grows because doing becomes more important than being. And maybe you've also fallen into the perfect diet trap. Of course, taking care of what you eat matters, but when it becomes an obsession, the pursuit of health can turn into another source of stress. Have you ever turned down invitations to go out with friends because the restaurant didn't have options that fit your diet? Have you ever felt guilty for eating something off-plan? Food should be a source of pleasure and nourishment, but sometimes it becomes another prison. That excess control, disguised as discipline, actually drains your spontaneity and disconnects you from simple life experiences. Now let me ask you something personal. Have you ever felt like you were doing everything to take care of yourself, yet still felt increasingly tired and empty? If your answer is yes, I'd love for you to leave this phrase in the comments. I know what it feels like to be tired, even when doing everything right. This will show others they're not alone in this experience. You can copy and paste it. Sharing your experience is a way of offering support to those going through the same thing. Another habit that seems healthy but can burn you out is forced positivity. The idea that we must always keep our chin up and smile is very common. Of course, cultivating positive thoughts helps, but making it an obligation can be toxic. When you force yourself to always be okay, you end up suppressing real emotions like sadness, anger, or frustration. And repressed feelings don't disappear. They pile up until the body starts sending physical signals: headaches, muscle tension, insomnia. The body says what the mouth won't. Excessive positivity in practice can disguise suffering. Finally, there's the habit of always being in motion. Exercising and staying active is undeniably important. But when movement becomes an escape, it stops being healthy. How many people do you know who go to the gym not because they love it, but because they feel guilty if they don't? Physical activity should be a gift to the body, but in many cases it turns into just another obligation on an overloaded schedule. When you exercise out of pressure, The effect isn't relief but more stress. It's as if your body never has the chance to truly rest. These 5 habits, always being available, chasing productivity without limits, obsessively controlling your diet, forcing constant positivity, and staying in non-stop motion, may look like signs of discipline, health, and success, but silently, they're draining your vital energy. The scariest part is that, disguised as self-care, they often go unnoticed as the fuel of hidden burnout. It's like feeding the fire burning inside while believing you're protecting yourself from it. Here's the most important point. Recognizing these habits doesn't mean you need to abandon them completely. What really changes everything is how you relate to them. Being available can be wonderful, with clear boundaries. Being productive is great, but it shouldn't define your worth. Eating well matters, but food shouldn't be a prison. Positive thinking helps, but negative emotions are human and necessary. Exercise is fantastic, but rest days matter too. In the second part of this video, we'll dive even deeper and talk about how to turn these habits into allies instead of silent enemies, because the key isn't living at extremes, but finding balance. At the end of the day, what sustains a healthy life isn't rigidity, but the ability to listen to the signals of your body and mind. And when you learn to do that, burnout stops being a threat and becomes just a distant memory. Sometimes when we talk about burnout, it feels like something far away, something that only happens to people who work too much or live under extreme pressure. But the truth is, burnout is sneakier than it looks. It slips into daily life, hides behind habits that seem harmless, and by the time you notice, you're already in the middle of exhaustion so deep that even getting out of bed feels like a battle. That's why this second part of our conversation is so important. Here, we'll go deeper into how to reframe these habits and build a life where energy isn't drained but renewed every day. One of the biggest drivers of hidden burnout is the struggle to recognize limits. Many of us grow up learning that we must always give a little more, that rest is laziness, that asking for help is weakness. This mindset builds an invisible prison. It's like carrying a backpack full of rocks, and with each new demand, someone adds another rock. At first you can manage, but over time the weight becomes unbearable. And the worst part? Believing it's normal to feel this way, so you keep walking, ignoring your body's signals, until one day you simply can't anymore. Relearning to listen to your body is a fundamental step. Fatigue, difficulty focusing, constant irritability, loss of pleasure in things you once enjoyed. All of these aren't signs of weakness but warnings. They're alarms blaring to tell you something is wrong. Yet often we silence those. Alarms with phrases like, "It's just a phase, it'll get better once I finish this project, everyone's tired, I can't complain." But the body doesn't lie. It keeps screaming until you listen. And this is where balance comes in. Balance isn't about doing everything perfectly, but about learning to measure. For example, always being available might seem noble, but setting limits isn't selfish. It's smart. Saying no to an after-hours call is saying yes to your rest, your mental health, your energy to show up when it truly matters. It takes courage because we often fear disappointing others, but it's exactly that fear that keeps the cycle of exhaustion alive. And once you realize it's impossible to please everyone, you begin to understand that your priority must be keeping yourself whole. Another crucial aspect is redefining success. We live in a culture that glorifies productivity. It feels like we're only valuable when we're constantly producing. But true, success isn't about how much you do, it's about how you live. Ask yourself, what good is recognition, goals, and achievements if you're empty inside, drained, unhealthy? Burnout proves that chasing results without balance isn't worth it. Real success is being able to lay your head on the pillow peacefully, knowing you cared for yourself and your relationships. To picture this, imagine someone climbing a ladder for years, step by step, never looking around. When they finally reach the top, they realize the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. That's the danger of living on autopilot, focused only on productivity. You might reach the top, but if you haven't cultivated health, joy, and genuine connections along the way, the top is meaningless. Burnout is exactly that feeling of emptiness in the middle of achievement. Another key point is how we handle emotions. The obsession with constant positivity creates emotional numbness. You start ignoring anger, sadness, frustration, believing only good feelings are acceptable. But negative emotions serve a purpose. Anger signals that your limits are being crossed. Sadness may signal you need comfort. Ignoring these signs is like sealing a pressure cooker without a valve. Eventually it explodes, and that explosion often shows up in the body: insomnia, palpitations, chronic pain. Learning to feel is learning to release pressure before it becomes unbearable. How do you do this in practice? One way is to build the habit of checking in with yourself throughout the day. Ask, how am I feeling right now? It may seem simple, but few people do it. Naming your emotions already starts to lighten the load. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, what seems scary becomes clear. And when you understand what you feel, you can act with more clarity. Sometimes, what you need isn't more effort, but a pause, a hug, a moment of silence. Exercise is another habit worth reframing. Instead of being an obligation, it can be a celebration of the body. It's not about how many calories you burned, but how you felt while moving. When you choose an activity you love, exercise stops being another demand and becomes a source of joy. It could be dancing alone in your room, walking in the park, playing with your kids. The body doesn't need perfection, it needs movement. This shift in perspective turns exercise into an ally of mental health, not an enemy. And remember, changing your relationship with these habits doesn't mean abandoning discipline, but transforming rigidity into flexibility. Think of a tree. A tree that's too rigid breaks in the first storm, but a flexible tree sways with the wind, adapts, and stays standing. Flexibility is the key to surviving pressure without breaking. This applies to boundaries, productivity, food, positivity, and movement. Now I invite you to reflect. Which of these habits has drained your energy the most? Always being available? Pressuring yourself to be endlessly productive? Controlling every detail of your diet? Forcing yourself to always be positive? Or turning exercise into a chore? Choose one and think of a small adjustment you can make today. Something simple, but that shows kindness to yourself. Maybe saying no to a message, resting without guilt, eating something with joy, or allowing yourself to feel an emotion without judgment. Every gesture matters. The path to overcoming hidden burnout isn't about radical changes, but about daily micro-choices. These small choices add up and build a lighter, healthier life. And this is when you realize burnout doesn't need to be a constant threat. When you learn to listen, respect, and allow yourself to be human, the fire that once burned inside becomes a different flame, one that warms, lights, and sustains you. And before we finish, I want to remind you of something important. You are not alone in this journey. Thousands of people feel the same exhaustion and emptiness, believing they're failing when really they're just overloaded. Sharing this experience is an act of courage. So, if this video resonated with you, leave in the comments which habit you feel has drained you the most. Your words might be the spark of hope someone else needs. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. This simple act helps spread the message and might reach someone suffering in silence who needs to hear exactly this. Here you'll always find compassion, deep reflections, and practical tools to care for your mental health, because life is so much more than productivity and perfection. Life is about presence, connection, and balance. May you leave here today knowing there truly is a path beyond burnout, a path where habits stop being chains and become wings, where discipline walks hand in hand with lightness, where each day is a chance to care for yourself without guilt, without rigidity, but with love and awareness. This is true freedom, living without burning out inside, with your heart glowing, ready to shine.